Although China was backing Ho Chi Minh with massive aid and war materials, like Sihanouk, the Chinese leaders were wary of Hanoi's ambitions. The Vietnamese would be a thorn in China's flank if they were allowed to dominate all of Indochina after the war was won. As the war in Vietnam grew, the United States became more and more frustrated. And one of its greatest frustrations was the Viet Cong's use of sanctuaries behind the Cambodian border. In addition, men and supplies from North Vietnam were crossing Cambodian soil as a lifeline to the communist forces. These were the famous Ho Chi Minh trails. Neutral Cambodia was no longer virgin. Sihanouk denied the violations at first, but in fact he had struck a deal with the communist Vietnamese. In return for their use of Cambodia, they agreed to respect her existing borders after the war was over. Sihanouk explained his position 20 years later.
I could see clearly that the Americans one day would like to quit, to live in China, and North Vietnam would be the winner. So I made my best. I made all efforts to get the gratitude of the Vietnamese for my Cambodia. Reason why I helped them. I did not want to do harm to the United States. I like Western culture. I do not speak Vietnamese. My wife is half French, half Cambodian, no Vietnamese blood. I did not conquer any Vietnamese girl when I was a playboy. So I have no connection with Vietnam. I do not hate the United States, but by opportunism, by patriotism, I had to help the North Vietnamese, and I got their promise to respect always Cambodia as an independent state, a neutral state, non-aligned state, without any interference in our internal affairs from Vietnam.
More and more Cambodians, however, were disenchanted by Sihanouk's breach with America. The loss of greenback dollars was taking its toll. Students were grumbling, the army was bitter, and Sihanouk's stifling control rankled the urban classes. To appease the army and his right-wing critics, Sihanouk appointed General Lon Nol to head a new, more conservative government. Lon Nol's partner was a prince named Siri Matak, who came from a branch of the royal family which the French had snubbed when Sihanouk was given the throne. While Sihanouk knew he could bluff Lon Nol, he was not so sure of Siri Matak. Lon Nol himself and others high up were lining their pockets by trucking supplies for the Viet Cong. But despite the corruption, they despised the Viet Cong presence. They yearned for the halcyon days of American spending, before Sihanouk had cut off relations. By the late 1960s, Sihanouk had second thoughts. Alarmed by the discontent, he put out feelers to restore relations with Washington. President Nixon, however, had schemes of his own. In March 1969, Operation Breakfast began. The Americans launched a secret campaign of bombing to strike at the communist sanctuaries in Cambodia. Sihanouk would never admit that he actually approved of America's bombing, but instead of protesting, Sihanouk was uncharacteristically silent. In January 1970, the prince took leave from his mounting problems at home. He left Phnom Penh to fly to France. There he wanted rest and medical attention before going on to Moscow and Peking to make urgent appeals for economic aid. He would also issue a warning to the communist leaders.
I plan to talk to Moscow and Peking and to say to them that they should advise their allies, the Viet Cong, the Viet Minh, to avoid, to refrain themselves from interfering in the affairs of the Cambodian, because Cambodia will not be willing to be communized, and they will meet with strong resistance of the Cambodian people if they want to communize us.
Protest marches were staged in Phnom Penh during Sihanouk's absence. Although Cambodia's troubles were economic, Lon Nol and Sirimatat were turning the frustrations into popular anger against the communist Vietnamese. By attacking the Viet Cong presence, they were attacking Sihanouk's policies, and that was only a step from attacking the master himself.
The Cambodian people reacted by demanding that the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese authorities remove their bases from Cambodia. Popular anger grew. There were large demonstrations outside the National Assembly demanding the removal of Viet Cong and North Vietnamese bases. Norodom Sihanouk, faithful to his pro-communist political belief, condemned the demonstrators and defended the cause of the communists. In this, he was betraying his country and the Cambodian people.
Do you feel that Americans, say the CIA, has helped to stir up this trouble in Cambodia, or are your people genuinely against the Viet Cong interference there?
Everything is possible, but I do not want to accuse the United States. I have not any proof about it, but I can say that some officers in our army and many deputies and many members of the government in Phnom Penh, they want to be your allies in order to have dollars, your dollars. They don't think about the destiny and the fate of our homeland. They don't mind about it. They are more patriots for dollars than for Cambodia.
Instead of returning to Cambodia, Sihanouk flew on to Moscow and Peking. Perhaps he was confident of returning later with promises of new economic aid. But within a week, the revolt had gone too far, and Sihanouk had lost any chance to regain control.
On March 18, 1970, the National Assembly and the Council of the Kingdom met and voted unanimously to withdraw their confidence in Prince Norodom Sihanouk. Thus, on March 18, 1970, Prince Norodom Sihanouk was no longer the chief of state of Cambodia.
Mais nous notons une chose. Alors c'est la première chose, parce que le présent.
Ambition. Mr. Lon Nol, my cousin Sirimatat, they were guided by their personal ambitions. They had to betray Sihanouk in order to be at the top of Cambodia. You know, Lon Nol, it was a mystical. We spoke about